Welcome everyone to the final session of the 2022 Refugee and Immigrant Volunteer Summit. I just want to say congratulations to Reestablish Richmond and the Sacred Heart Center and the International Rescue Committee for creating such a robust and exciting program, and to Helen and Aaron for making these sessions run so seamlessly. It's been very impressive. So our final presentation is entitled Big Impact in Small Doses. And appropriately for a concluding session, it's going to focus on 4 topics that impact high quality mentoring relationships, something we are all striving for as volunteers. Our presenter is Tiara Whitfield. Welcome, Tiara. She is a training and development specialist with over 15 years of experience in program operations, instructional design, and course facilitation for both youth and adult audiences. She has worked throughout her career to improve antiquated pedagogical frameworks, focusing instead on designing inclusive educational systems, creating safe spaces for vulnerable conversations, and supporting efforts and initiatives aligned with those goals. So welcome, Tiara.
Thank you all for having me. And yes, congratulations for having a successful conference and summit. I'm pleased to be here. My style as a facilitator is definitely to get to know the audience and to try to learn from one another. And so I will go ahead and share my screen so that we can get started. All right, and please do feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself if you have any questions. We will save some time towards the end of the presentation for a Q&A, but something is burning or it makes sense to ask a question as we're going through content, please don't be shy. Our mission at Mentor Virginia is to foster quality mentoring relationships that empower, elevate, and encourage young people. And we do so by making sure that we provide high quality training so that everyone who wants a mentor will have a mentor who has been trained. So again, I do appreciate the offer of being here with you all running different elements of mentoring programs. Some of the topics that we're going to cover today, we hope that you will walk away with the following skills. In our time together, we'll review significant catalysts of trauma for youth and families of refugee status. You'll be able to identify your own strategies for mentoring and motivating youth that can be used in most interactions, whether it be interactions where you're spending a large amount of time with youth or very small touch points with the youth in your life. And then finally, you'll be able to assess opportunities to provide support or figure out if you're supposed to provide more motivation while engaging with those youth. Excuse me. And to begin, I do want to keep it national just for a point of icebreaker, because if we opened it up globally, we would be here having a very long conversation. If you're able to, and if you'd like to share, this is going to be time for you to share via your chat box. And so you can go ahead and get ready to open that up. And my question to you all is, please list out all of the states you've lived in so far. If it's just Virginia, you can put VA. If there have been multiple states, please list them all. Maybe separate them with a comma or a dash. Okay, Nancy is our first so far, VA, PA, and Illinois. I live in Virginia now. I'm from Pennsylvania, Nancy. I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh girl. And I was just in Illinois last weekend, and I do not know why I picked the dead of the winter to visit Chicago. It was a very, very, very bad decision, but I had a good time. All right, Margaret, Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Kentucky. And Leslie is also Virginia, PA, and then New Jersey. All right, awesome, awesome. Maybe raise your hands or use your reaction buttons if you've ever moved as a child. Do I see any hands? I see Nancy. Okay, Kathy, Helen. All right, and for those of you who moved as children, you can come off mute if you'd like to share. What were some of the things that went through your mind when you moved from your one home base to another place? Anyone want to share memories of moving as a child?
When I was 12, we moved from Pennsylvania to Illinois, and it didn't really sink in that it was pretty far away, because I thought I would just have more friends, and I didn't feel bad or scared. I was looking forward to it. And then when I was 16, we moved from Illinois to another place in Pennsylvania, and I had a boyfriend, and I knew how far away it was, and it felt like everything was ending and crashing, and I would never be happy again. Sort of melodramatic for a middle-class white kid, you know.
No, those emotions were real at the time. Puppy love is real love too, right?
Yes, that's true.
Anybody else? Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else have an experience of moving as a child that they can share? How about just one more?
I moved from the city to the county, and it was a complete culture shock, but it definitely has made me who I am today, and I feel like I'm a more well-rounded person.
Thank you, Lena. I appreciate that feedback. I stated that I am from Pittsburgh, PA. I didn't move until I was an adult. I've only been in Richmond, Virginia since the end of 2019. So I came pre-pandemic, but I've not seen a lot because I've been boxed in and sheltered in the house. However, experiencing a move is different for everyone, right? It's an individual experience. Sometimes it's viewed as a positive thing, positive experience. Sometimes it's viewed as very negative. For children, those emotions really run a gamut, and it's really dependent on how it's presented to them when they move. When you're talking about moving within the nation, let me phrase it that way. When you're talking about moving within the United States from state to state, it can be scary, it can be a lot of things, but most of the time when people decide to leave and move from state to state, they're not fleeing large issues of war, scary situations of violence, and the experience that people seeking asylum experience when they're moving is a lot different. But again, for kids, when they are taking on the fact that they're moving or relocating from place to place, a lot of times it's a scary thought because they're not sure what changes to expect. We are going to move into talking about points of trauma for asylum seekers, and considering, again, every point that they experience that may give them some element of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so the first point of origin for trauma when it comes to those seeking asylum or living with a refugee status is the reason why they wanted to leave in the first place. And that usually centers around the country of origin that they're from. They are trying to leave that place, obviously, because there is a war going on, there's increased violence, or they can get in trouble or killed for being who they are because of their race, their religion, nationality, their political opinions, or their socioeconomic group. A second point of trauma for those who are seeking to get out of a country that is violent and war-ridden would be the actual journey at hand. Points or characteristics that can impact individuals and cause trauma could be what some people also experience when they move from state to state. I think, as Nancy pointed out, that distance, not really being aware of how far it is, and then actually going through the journey of traveling and experiencing all of the things that people experience when they migrate, potential deaths, separation from family, and fear of the unknown, fear of being caught, and again, just the fear of the unknown. Another part of what can be experienced during the journey when thinking of trauma is secondary trauma, or witnessing something happening to someone that you love. All of these things are impactful to us as adults, but also through kid eyes, they really don't necessarily understand what's going on at all times or what may be causing those things, but they feel the fear that is connected to the experience. And then finally, when these people arrive in new countries, a lot of times they're still separated from family members, or they have to go through a process and they're put in detainment until they can obtain refugee status. And for many, those detainment camps feel like prisons. And those individuals go from feeling like they're fleeing a country, for fear of being killed or being in prison, to a new situation where they're actually in prison and they're seeking freedom. Also, an experience of trauma that people in new countries go through would be social treatment, how their culture is viewed from others who are native to the land that they're entering into, the process of assimilation, getting used to the area that they're living in or getting used to their place in society, so to speak, and acculturation, becoming familiar with customs and processes of the new place. All of those experiences are points of trauma. And so some quick facts that you all may be aware of is that 48 million people are displaced around the entire world. And 68% of those displaced people come from just 5 countries. And so going back to that social treatment, if a multitude of people are coming from only 5 countries, those people can feel a certain way in an environment. They can feel not welcomed, or they can feel stigmatized. And so all of these things the kids feel and the kids experience. And so when working with a mentee who may be experiencing some element of trauma, there are some activities you can do with them to get to know them better, to help give them language to discuss their trauma, and to help them change the scenario in their heads from feeling fearful or feeling ashamed if that comes up, and making them feel like they are heroes, and letting them, helping them to rebuild confidence for themselves and for their families. And so one of the first icebreakers that you can do with them would be drawing and sharing an iceberg. And I'll talk about the iceberg in just a moment, but I did want to share the video and the theory behind the cultural iceberg. The language behind the cultural iceberg theory.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire, message.
In his book, Beyond.
You can hear the video. Can I get a verbal yes? I can't really see faces right now.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, yeah. Edward T. Hall developed the iceberg analogy of culture. The cultural iceberg theory suggests that, like an iceberg, there are only some aspects of culture which are visible, or which, in other words, lie above the surface of the water. These can include language, food, greetings, art, music, and many others. These are the explicit manifestations of culture. They are easy to see, taste, or hear. But according to Hall's theory, these are only the tip of the iceberg. The majority of culture, like an iceberg, lies beneath the surface. These aspects are not immediately visible. They can include worldview, religion, spiritual beliefs, decision-making models, power relationships, respect for authority, concepts of time, and many others. These are the implicit manifestations of culture. They can exert an important influence over behaviour, values, feelings, and thoughts. The more immersed we become in a cultural environment, the more these hidden aspects are revealed to us.
All right, again, communication is key to getting to know another person. And so utilizing activity like drawing an iceberg and sharing your culture and your background with your mentee may be a good way to get them to open up. Some questions to ask if you do implement this activity are going to be on the screen. You can ask them who or what motivates them each day. And you can then get them to dig a little bit deeper by asking them how some of the elements they've identified on their or within their icebergs actually help them relate to others or help them connect to others. And you can also help clarify or get visions out of your mentees by asking them the question of what they see for themselves in the next 6 months to 1 year. Any questions about this activity or implementing this icebreaker before we move on? All righty. Another activity to implement to help your mentees feel a sense of pride and help regain that sense of self-confidence again would be playing a name game. And the name game that I had in mind is called What's in a Name. You would ask your mentee to share either their first name or their last name, and then have them share the details behind that name, whether it be the history of it, how they got the name, who it came from, or if there's a family story connected to it. A lot of times, a note to keep in mind about names is that first names tend to be passed on from family member to family member, or they can be picked and selected from a special family member that has a really close bond with that child or with the parents of that child. Also, last names tend to hold a lot of significance for a family. This is my family name up here in the banner, and it is really powerful and significant to me because, again, it is where I come from, but also my family is full of a lot of women, and there aren't too many men with the last name Hicks who can carry on that family line. And so we are aware in our family that our name may die off at some point in time. And so we have a strong bond with it. Families often experience name changes when migrating. Sometimes the names can change completely to kind of get rid of whatever stigma they're fleeing from. Sometimes they can be altered just a little bit. And some of these stories are about those losses, but again, some of those stories are about opportunity. If implementing this activity with your youth, you should also participate and share some significance about your name, your first name or your last name. And then for fun and for clarity, decide together how you all want to address one another. I remember very clearly from early on in my career, I can't really see the student's face anymore, but they were around a first or second grade student, and it was a male student. And this little boy's name, again, I don't remember his first name, but I remember that he wanted me to call him Stud. And so for a year of programming, we called him Stud, and that is just how he is in my mind. He is Stud. It'd be really interesting to see, you know, how he turned out. He's probably taller than me. But those things stand out. Names are really important. And so understanding what names mean to the students in your life and how they want to be regarded is a good first step at building a bond and connecting to them. And so just for some fun measure and to build a little community amongst us, I wanted to take a break to see if there was 1 to 2 people maybe who wanted to share a story about their first or last name and the significance behind that. Don't be shy. Sally?
Yes, so I am the 7th of 8 children, and my parents got tired of figuring out names. So they had my siblings sit in front of the blackboard and they wrote down suggestions, and then everybody voted, and that's how I got my name.
Oh, that's awesome. A family decision. How do you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings about that. You know, it's like, well, I could have had a better name maybe, but it doesn't matter. It's a fun image to think of my siblings doing that.
And it's definitely fun to hear. So when you tell the story, it lands on my ears as a very fun family activity that might have taken place. Unfortunately, it was without you, you know, timing, but still a very cool story. Thank you for sharing. Did anybody else want to share? My story is not as good. My story is very, very sad. It's not emotional sad, but it's like my parents could have done better, Sally. 100%. Anybody else?
Yeah, I could share. When I was growing up, they didn't call them last names. They called them first names and second names. And so my second name, I call it a last name now, but because I'm like, that's what everyone else does. And we're in my culture, but we didn't do that. So when I started hearing last names, I was like, what's that? And so anyway, I found out that I had my father's last name. And I found out at some point as a child still that that really wasn't his last name, that it was a made up name. And that when his parents immigrated, they had a different name and it was changed twice. So nobody seemed to know how to spell it, the real name. But we knew how to spell the second name. So it made it hard to track. Like if you were trying to track people, relatives, or, if they wanted, I think first they did it because they thought they might have been trying to be more American by changing their name. And then they said that somebody told them they were immigrants and somebody told them to change their name, but they were never really able to say who. So, but it's okay. I mean, it's, you get used to your name and it's your name.
Yeah, it's a part of you. It's a part of your story.
Yeah.
Thank you for also sharing, Leslie.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that you were able to give us the bits and pieces of your culture and telling us that it was called something different. That opens up lines of, communication to be able to discuss things like that about culture. Last call. Anybody else? Anybody else want to go? Did you want to hear my bad story? Maria, I think I see your hand.
I'll go.
Right.
So, my first, my middle, and my last name they all have issues, but I'll just do my first name, Maria. So most people issues. Well, some good, some bad issues, but I'll talk about, I guess, the stigma, which that comes with the name Maria. And I love the name Maria, but in many cultures, well, I guess I'll say a lot of people view the name Maria as a Hispanic name, and I'm not Hispanic. I'm actually biracial, and so my entire life, people are like, "Do you speak Spanish?" They just kind of automatically put me in a category, whether we're doing projects, this, that, group work, linking in pairs. I'm just automatically put into that category. So sorry, my daughter, I'm constantly like, well, I have more to me in my name, so I guess it's fun, but I guess it has something to do with how sometimes stigmas go with like physical appearance and sometimes they don't, but thanks.
Thank you, Maria. And also, again, food for thought. We can't judge a book by its cover. Having the conversation about names will help us understand where our mentees are coming from without feeling like we're asking investigative questions to, pry into their lives. I will tell you very shortly, my father named me. His nickname starts with a T. He wanted to name me Tiffany, but my older cousin Tiffany was born before I was, and his sister stole the name. And so they were scrambling for another T name. And I am definitely named after a Tiara van because they saw it on the back of one while in traffic. And so, yes, not a great story to know you're named after a van. All right, getting right back into our content. It's gonna feel bad for me later. All right, another activity that is fun along the same terms of helping to build self-esteem about not only the individual child, but helping them to insert some more self-esteem around their family and their family situation. Because again, these people are escaping so that they can pursue opportunities and safety. They're not really coming to be criticized or coming to be separated. They're coming simply because they want to exist in a connected way and live without violence, right? And so creating a personal or a family crest is like a fun artistic activity to implement with your kiddos as well. You get a blank sheet of paper, it could be textured paper, I love arts and crafts. And so you can help them with the shape and identify colors, because we know colors mean different things. And we can help them create something artistic that they feel represents strength, and specifically strength for their families. All right, getting to some strategies for how we work with, or strategies for mentoring and motivating our youth. The Search Institute is another nonprofit partner who specializes in research in the area of youth development. And so just like any recipe, let's pretend we're baking a mentoring cake. Like any cake, there would be ingredients. And so the Search Institute tells us that high quality mentoring relationships should have the following 5 ingredients. They should express care, challenge growth, provide support, share power, and expand possibilities. And so you're thinking of these ingredients as the adult in the relationship going towards the youth or the protege in the relationship. So as an adult, when you express care to your youth, it should feel like you're showing them that you want them to be there, that you like them, and that you want what's best for them. When you are challenging growth within your mentee, you should insist that they try to continuously improve. It's not necessarily to make them more like you or to put them into a mold, but you want them to challenge themselves so that they grow and learn different things and experience life. As an adult, when it comes to providing support to your mentee, you want to help them complete tasks and achieve goals, but making sure that you're not doing things for them. You are encouraging them, you're lifting them up, and you might be able to provide examples for them, but again, you're not completing the tasks for them. Sharing power is really important because adults sometimes, with being an adult, we automatically take power or assume authority. And when it comes to being an adult in a mentoring relationship, you are an intentional friend. And so it's not really your job at all to be an authoritative figure. As an adult, you do have responsibilities that are connected to being an adult. If something happens to anyone, you're responsible for reporting that to program staff or taking care of the situation, but you shouldn't be authoritative and telling your mentees what to do and what not to do. You should help them come to those decisions on their own. And so when it comes to sharing power, you want to make sure that your mentee feels like you hear their voice and that you do let them share in making the decisions. And then finally, you want to expand their possibilities. Mentoring relationships, again, are intentional, strategic relationships that are an example for youth of how to have a positive connection with an adult. From the beginning of a mentoring relationship, you're teaching them how to start and get to know someone. Some of the icebreakers that we just reviewed will help you with that. All the way to the end of a mentoring relationship when it's time to close and you're having a conversation about everything you experienced together. You want to make sure that when you meet up with them, you're helping them to just reach opportunities that they might not have gotten to without you. And so again, I would like to hear from some members of the audience to see what you currently do in the following categories. And so when it comes to expressing care, can anyone give me an example of something they do with a mentee or something they'd like to do in the future that you believe shows them that you care for them and you want them to be there? And you can just come off mute because I can't really see your faces again.
Well, a big one for me is in the past 2 years has been texting the kids and saying, hey, I really am concerned about your not being vaccinated. I'd like to help you with that. And explaining why, and, making the appointment, picking them up, going with them, and laughing, saying, let's go together. Let's go as a group. Oh, it won't just be you and me. We'll pick up a couple of your friends and we'll all go together and taking pictures and, just making it as fun as it can be to get a shot. So, and following up you doing okay? You make sure you have enough water that day, that type of thing. Did you eat breakfast? Just showing like, I want you to be healthy. I don't want you to get sick. I don't want you to die.
Thank you, Leslie, being in the moment with them. And I like making it fun and offering to pick up friends. I'm sure that's helpful.
Yeah.
Can anyone else share how they've expressed care with the youth in their lives?
Well, this is Lena again. I haven't worked with the youth, but the woman that I am mentoring, just being consistent, and even if we picked a certain day, like they say, send a text message or a GIF or a meme, just to let her know that I'm thinking about her, and that if you to reach out, I'm available.
Thank you, Lena. All right, we're going to move on to challenging growth. And so again, this is making sure that we provide opportunities for our youth that they can accomplish, but that challenges their education a little bit, that helps them learn how to critical think or think outside the box. Sally, at the last minute, I saw your hand for the last category. Would you be able to say something you've done in your past for this one?
Yeah, I was going to say reflecting their feelings. So saying something like, oh, you must have been really frustrated with that assignment or something like that.
Thank you for that. Yes, acknowledgement is huge, right? People like to, not only do they like to be validated, we are humans, we need to be validated. And so letting them know that you understand what they're going through is definitely a way to express care. Thank you. How about for challenging growth? And I can give you some more examples of what should go here. It would be being more inspirational, helping them to see, future possibilities for themselves, making it clear that you have certain expectations for them. And I see a hand from Helen. How about you?
Yeah, I practice that, I think, with my younger brother. I share opportunities, internships, things for him to apply for, even if he may not necessarily be there yet, or may not, qualify for certain things. But I still want him to know that these things are out there, and he can aspire to them.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, letting people know what exists so that they can have time to stretch or time to set themselves up and, better position themselves to attain them in the future is also part of it. So thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else?
I've sometimes done sort of a contract with someone I was working with, just knowing that certain goal needed to be achieved, and then they're figuring out the steps they were going to take to do that. Mm-hmm. And then writing those up and checking back with them to see if they were happening.
Thank you, Margaret. And we're going to talk about SMART goals as one of our final slides, but it would definitely fit into the area of challenging growth, because setting goals and reaching for them are things to be accomplished, and they're not always easy. And so having a mentor be able to help you or guide you along and insert resources for you. I remember some of the mentors I had in my life. I definitely wouldn't be in the seat that I am without their guidance, their talks of inspiration, and their validation. So thank you to those of you who have shared so far. We're going to move on to providing support. Again, this is helping the youth complete tasks, but not doing it for them. And so what it feels like is that, again, you want to challenge their growth, you want to see them succeed, but you want to you want to encourage, you want to guide, and you want to model. You don't want to complete it for them. Sid, I see your hand up. Did you have
so my name's Sid. I'm 14 years old right now, and I think a good, thing to do to provide support for these children, I think, is to one of the things I thought of was maybe tutoring them. Just these small things, but helping them with school and stuff like that. I think that makes I think that helps them a lot. I'm 14 years old, so I'm not really done something to really provide them support with, but in the future, maybe tutoring these kids that I think that's a fantastic thing to do for just for just helping them and just providing support for them. I think that would be a fantastic thing to do.
Thank you for your contribution, Sid. I agree. Providing support as a tutor is a definite area that's going to guide them and help them grow. And you'll also be able to model certain expectations for them. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but only because you mentioned your age twice, I must give you a shout out because I don't know if I would speak in a summit full of adults if I was 14.
No, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add, how you would provide support or something you've done in the past or want to do in the future?
Well, I've only taken 2 families out, Afghan families, to shop to the grocery store, and they were pretty new to the country, and I didn't want to hover and I didn't want to do it all for them, and they had several people in their party, so I kind of held back, and I could see that they were pretty good at shopping and they knew exactly what they wanted. We didn't have much language skill, but so I just, the best I could do was to hang out by the checkout when they were getting ready to check out to make sure they were able to use the EBT card and see that they knew how it worked and how to put it into the machine and all that sort of stuff. So I wanted to see what they could do themselves, and yet I wanted to be there. And, you know, we did have a few glitches that I was able to help them through. So I've only started, so it's kind of fun and exciting, and I hope to keep on doing it. And maybe I'm going to train to take people on buses too, if I can learn the bus system and then maybe help people find their way on buses. But I don't know the bus system yet myself. Since
me neither, Nancy. I don't think I'd be able to get down the street yet. So I'm right with you. That's definitely a resource that I need to do better at myself.
Once I learn it, I'll teach you.
Yes, thank you for sharing. And thank you for your example, because a lot of the examples were great, but you gave us a visual that we can all see in our minds. We've all been grocery shopping and we can all see what it might be like in our minds to provide support for a group of people who are new to the country. It's exciting to shop. I'm greedy. I hope people love food and like what food, you know, does to bring people together. And so it's great to be able to see in our minds how you might have been hanging back, there to encourage and there to advocate for them, but not doing it for them. So thank you for that. And I see one more. Maria, is your hand up for providing support?
Yeah, yes, it is. Coming from a teacher aspect of it, I think a lot of the families that I had interaction with that were from Afghanistan in particular, the moms, they weren't even aware of the help that the school can give them. That even in the county, there's a translator. I'm not saying, you know, the county I'm from had like the best resources and top notch, but we definitely had a person in the human resources that was able to get a translator and help them with certain things. So I guess coming from helping the parent aspect also helped me having those students in my class. And with 2 of the moms, they came after school and we sat down and we did basic emailing. I showed them how to contact me if there's questions. I mean, it wasn't a one-day process. It was more like a month, but we got through it and we had fun, and they know how to send an email. So I guess helping the parents also helped me with the students.
Perfect, thank you. So many times when working with students, we forget about parents and guardians or neglect them. We don't mean to forget about them, but we're so focused on the child. I appreciate you highlighting the parent connection for us, because if you have a strong parent connection, as you said, Maria, it helps you in turn be able to further cultivate your relationship with the student you're supporting. All right, we're going to move on to sharing power. This is a tricky one for us because most of us are adults on the call, and said you're on your way. I also saw your message in the chat. Yes, tutoring is a great way to provide support. And you also mentioned that help or tutoring around the citizenship test.
Yes.
That's a great idea. So thank you for that. When it comes to sharing power, though, to all the adults on the line, this is making sure that we help the youth elevate their voice, that we take time to listen to the things that they're actually saying, and make changes around them and help them make decisions. What have you done so far in this area, or what would you like to do in terms of sharing power?
Well, I was a family that I work with, that I've been working with for a long time, was that the parents were could only read. One of the parents could only read in his language, and the one of them could not. She was pre-literate, so there wasn't an opportunity or a possibility for them to do their banking, and so I work with a family to help he was, at the time, he was like 16. Now he's 18, but at the time he was 16. And I work with him to help him do electronic banking and to help his parents pay their bills. And, his parents really had to trust him to do, not to spend all their money or to do it correctly. And I think it gave him a real sense of, because he wasn't the oldest. And so it gave him like a real sense of like, I am doing something for my family. And we worked on it like gradually, so that in the beginning, he didn't do it all by himself. Like he would bring he and his father would come over to my apartment, and the three of us would do it together, and he would translate and everything, and we would just talk about it. And gradually, he hardly ever asks me anything anymore, but he still can if he needs to, but he does it himself. He pays, if he got into a problem, he wouldn't try to fix, he would say, this is what I tried, but what should I do? I don't know what to do. So, and we also included him on for social services, he doesn't do it all by himself, but we work on the SNAP benefits together. And so as much as the way I've kind of just gradually wanted him to take on more and more, and not being like, I'm doing it for you, but just like, I'm here to make sure that you feel like if you have a question, or that if it's too much. And they seem to know. I mean, he seems to know when it's too much for him, when he needs help.
Huge contribution to a family to make for a child. Yeah. So they're entrusting him. They and he are entrusting you, and all of you are sharing the power of working together as a team to make sure that your final goal of making sure that the family's bills are paid appropriately is the main goal, and you're doing it correctly. So that is definitely a way to share power. If anyone has any other ways they share power, I am going to ask you to direct it to the chat, because we're running out of time. We're having too much fun together. It's always how it goes. And I want to make sure we do have at least one example of what it's like to expand opportunity. And so again, in the area of expanding opportunity, you're showing them things that they may not have seen without a relationship with you. And so any examples of how people have expanded opportunities for their mentees? Maria, I see your hand, but I'm not sure if that's for this one or the last one.
Me?
I saw your hand. I wasn't sure if that was for me or if it was up from last time.
Oh, I look at me with technology. I didn't know I can put it down. I'm sorry. It's for the last.
No worries. All right. In terms of expanding opportunity, has anyone have an example for me? Because I can give you one.
Oh yeah, I could. If nobody else does, I can.
Sure, please do share.
We heard about through some people at Reestablish Richmond. I heard about a camp that gave scholarships, and so to children for the summer. And so I asked two of the girls that were at the time, they were like 14, and I asked them if they would be interested, and they were very scared, but we talked about it a lot, and because they were friends and they could go together, so they went, and they had such a great time that we had to wait because of COVID, but 2 years later, they shared their experience with the other youth in the community. And so 18 kids went last summer. They all got scholarships.
So awesome.
And they spent the night and 6 nights away.
Camp?
Camp. They spent 6 nights away, and they made new friends, and they came back so happy. and kept their siblings were like younger, begging to go. Can we go? Can we? So, yeah, it was really brave of them to go because, you know, some of them had never been separated from their parents overnight, other than maybe to sleep at somebody else in their community's house. You know?
And it seems so simple, right? We see a flyer, we pick it up, we share it, and it can open up a world of change for people. They build relationships that are going to last. They have experiences at camp that, you know, they're not going to forget. But you were just giving them the experience of camp, and then camp gave them so many other experiences to take advantage of.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. If you do have anything else to add as an example for expanding opportunities, please also drop that in the chat. One more tip one area of tips I would like to provide and make sure we have time for are making sure that we understand social cues or language when it comes to determining how we can work with our mentees. Is it time for us to give them space, or should we push them just a little bit more and give them motivation? And so in terms of understanding, you know, your level of support, the left column where it says provide support is what we're going to focus on in terms of giving them and identifying cues to understand that they need more space or time. If your mentor seems cranky or not talkative, and they're usually not that way, that would be one sign that they might not need encouragement at that moment. Perhaps they just need a little bit more space and time to get through what they're going through. If they say outright that they need space, listen to them. Don't pry. Don't try to think, you know, what's best for them. We want to elevate their voices and, again, listen when they're telling us things. If they give short answers or are unusually curt with you, again, this is a social cue that they're not necessarily in the mood to talk about their feelings or talk about what they're going through. And it's okay to just be there physically if they want to share that space with you, but also pay attention to their body language, because it may be a time that they're closed off and it might not be the best to engage. Maybe you want to go set up the snacks and leave them at the table, so to speak, to kind of just be mellow or mellow out until some time passes. And then finally, if you know that they have a lot going on in their lives at that moment and they display all of those things, it's not best to push them. Providing support looks like giving them space. And then on the other side, you know, understanding cues to motivate your students. If they come to you and they're speaking of self-doubt, there's a project I want to do, but I know I'll get a D on it. They're already talking themselves down. They start talking, but they get frustrated and stop, or they go away and then they come back 15 minutes later or 5 minutes. There's something there that's resting with them that they want your help with. They might not know how to use language or get all of what's inside of them, their emotions out to convey that. And then pointedly, if they ask for your advice and thoughts, you want to give it to them and motivate them accordingly. And finally, if they achieve a goal or accomplish something, you want to make sure that you continue to provide encouragement that's going to motivate them to act that way again in the future, or to continue accomplishing their goals. And so in thinking about all of the strategies we just talked about, one great activity to do with your mentees is teaching them about SMART goals and helping them set 1 to 2 goals that they can work on while they're with you or while the mentoring program exists. And so the very first step to SMART goals and working on SMART goals with students is not what's on the screen. The very first step to working with SMART goals with students is going to be creating a vision board. Giving them literature, giving them pictures, giving them stickers, and having them use their imagination to create possibilities or things that they want to see happen in their life. And then narrowing down from that vision or that board some identifiable things that they would be able to cross off their to-do list in a short amount of time. And if you're not familiar, or you're new to SMART goals, or you just happen to forget acronyms like I do, what SMART goals stands for is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And they are categorized in this way to make sure that your youth is able to get that to-do list checked off, again, in a realistic amount of time, with a set and specific goal, so that they're not just kind of aiming out in the dark and shooting blankly. That was a quick hour because I think we had fun together. I'm going to stop right here and see if there are any questions from you all. And I will stop sharing the screen so that we can continue building community. Any questions, folks? Nope, we were thorough. If there's no questions, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. You guys are great participants. Thank you all for sharing. And thank you, Helen.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much for being here.
Good
This
job.
was a
Thank
great
you.
session to wrap up Raves.
Thanks.
Bye, Helen, and bye, other Helen. You guys take care. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Tiara.
Thank you.